It's a Frank Dialogue podcast live event, a special broadcast on the Madlanga Commission, brought to you in collaboration with the Sunday World podcast, brought to you in collaboration with SMWX, as well as the State of the Nation podcast. A big collaboration today. We thought we will put a spotlight on the Madlanga Commission, especially with the developments there, recent developments we've seen. A lot of allegations really crossing the desk of that commission, and today we're going to break it down for you. I've got experts around the table here. Yusuf Abramjee, who's a crime expert, John Bailey from the Sunday World, the owner of the Sunday World and the CEO there, as well as Mike Sham, who's our co-podcaster of the State of the Nation podcast. So welcome, and of course you can also send us your comments and questions on the comments below. Big collaboration tonight on this live podcast event, coming to you live from outside the Sunday World studios here in Sunning Hill. Let me start with you, Yusuf. You have been really covering the Madlanga Commission with your overall work on crime fighting and so on. And I'm sure some of the things that have come out of there has also shocked you, although you are very, very connected in that area of security and policing, etc. Take our viewers through what the Madlanga Commission, right, has so far. If you can just give us 2 or 3 big highlights of what they have so far uncovered, but also then come and tell us what the latest are. We saw Ket Matlala being on the stand for the last 2 days. I didn't follow much of it today, but you would be able to tell us. Just give a viewer a sense of overall, what are we talking about when we're talking about the things that Madlanga has so far uncovered?
Where does one start, Prof? Today was day 166 of the hearings of the Madlanga Commission. Remember, the President announced it in July last year, and in September the first hearings began. We've seen witness after witness. We would not have been here today if it wasn't for General Makwenazi standing up last year in Durban and having that so-called explosive media briefing, where he opened the lid on the rot within the criminal justice system. Witness after witness. Every time we think we've heard a lot, we get more explosive evidence. And, we can go through the testimonies, the allegations. The one thing we can safely say, months after the commission has started, is that this commission can continue for years. I think what the commission is uncovering so far is only a tiny bit of the broader picture and the broader problems, only scratching at the surface. And let's be very honest. We as South Africans, when this commission was announced, we were all skeptical. In fact, I was the one who said, but you know what?
It's a waste of money.
It's a waste
of
money. Why is the time frame so long? It was 6 months or so. We said, you know what? You must have this commission within 21 days and let it get done. But as we sit here today and we reflect, no one expected that we would have had all this damning testimony that has come to the fore.
Absolutely.
You talk of Vusi Ket Matlala. A lot of focus has been over the past 2 days on this man who's so-called the alleged member of the Big Five cartel.
Big Five cartel,
and I must say, if I compare his testimony over the past 2 days and also just over a week ago to what we heard at the ad hoc committee, where he gave a lot of specific details, what he's doing now is he's got a massive legal team. He's exercising his so-called legal and constitutional right not to incriminate himself.
He's frankly obfuscating on many questions.
And simply put, he's ducking and diving. So he's not giving details. He doesn't want to talk too much about his relationship. But remember, he was the one that ought to have made the so-called plea bargain deal with the IDEC part of the NPA that fell apart. So clearly, Vusi Ket Matlala is now going back to his right to say it's my constitutional right and my legal right not to incriminate myself because either I'm charged or these people are going to be charged or investigations are underway. But if I look at witness after witness, I mean, the one thing that we often talk about is the Madlanga ward. The people who are invoking their so-called... They get sick suddenly. The likes of Suleiman Karim, Mike van Wyk, who was the CEO of Medicare 24.
Yeah.
We talk of Brown Mogotsi, even he tried his luck for a bit. We talk of Andrea Johnson. We saw her hearing being postponed. And so the list continues.
Yeah, but wasn't it ironic that Matala's advocate was also sick yesterday, and in fact they wanted to use that to postpone, and Madlanga said no.
In fact, the advocate, the senior counsel from the Yusuf, I mean, like her or not, she's very vocal. And I think when her return came today, I see a lot of people are coming to say this lady is a tough cookie, because she really stands up for her client, and she's very assertive in her legal arguments. But I clearly, JJ, from the first interim report, we know a number of people were referred to for investigation and prosecution and disciplinary hearings. Here we are. Since the Madlanga Commission started, we saw at least 31 senior police officials, including General Fani Masimola, being suspended. A number of them are in the dock. Yes, the likes of General Komalo and crime intelligence senior people, the charges have been withdrawn. We know the mess within IDEC, and we know how IDEC was used as a tool to further their own goals, whether it was a certain individual or group of individuals behind them. We still have to wait for the commission to make its findings. And then in the second interim report, we saw the likes of General Chedrick Sibia, who's on suspension, the Deputy National Police Commissioner. He still hasn't been charged. We know that there's a disciplinary process underway. We know the names of Brown Mogotsi was again mentioned in that particular report, and Sergeant Fani Nkosi and other individuals. And I think in the remaining time that we have, look here, the oral evidence is going to continue until the 2nd of September. The commission has to round off by November with the final report. I think over the coming weeks, I don't know if the commission is going to get to all the witnesses, because remember, they still have to do what we are told. Focus on the Gauteng gangs. They've done a bit of KwaZulu-Natal. We know the likes of Lieutenant Colonel Dina Governor has to come back next week.
They get to the JMPD.
They have to get to the JMPD, the city of Johannesburg. We know that there was talk at one stage they might focus a bit on the Western Cape gangs. We know, for example, General Makonazi must return. General Firoz Khan is scheduled to come on the 1st or 2nd of September, and I doubt very much that he will appear. They probably
still in hospital.
They
said they shot his feet or something.
He was discharged, and apparently he's in a so-called rehab. I doubt very much that he will appear. And remember, he's the man at the center of many of the allegations. So they've sent him a number of questions. He was the one, for example, that even in his talk with the likes of the tobacco magnate Mo Said from Kalinings, even used language which I don't want to repeat here on air, where they even threatened me. It just shows the length people can go to. But when senior police officials especially are involved in the rot and the nonsense, I think it troubles each and every South African.
In terms of getting to the truth, do you think that the Section 204 thing that fell apart with Ket Matlala is standing on the way of a lot? Because surely he was doing that in order to expose certain people so that he can be off the hook. But he wanted too good a deal for the courts to agree to it. Do you think that that is something that maybe, if you look at how he now is behaving now, not wanting to divulge much, that it has come in the way of the commission getting to the bottom of things?
Most certainly, if that Section 204 a deal went through, we would have seen a number of arrests being made. I can tell you now, people like Lieutenant General Chedrick Sibia would have been arrested, because we know that from our sources that he's implicated him in the 204 statement. We know the likes of the former Minister of Police, Becky Cele, that we claimed that the ad hoc committee he paid 500,000 rand cash to as a so-called work or bribe or whatever you want to call it in the Woolworths packet, was implicated. We know certain senior police officials were implicated. There's no doubt if that Section 204 deal went through, we would have seen a number of people in the dock.
Without the 204, if we focus on the minister, because remember, big allegation was around the minister. That's why he was immediately put on leave, right? Now, if you've seen what you have had the last 2 days in terms of focusing on the minister. What else does the president need to get rid of this minister who's been earning a salary for an entire year, unjustifiably so?
He's clearly enjoying the gardening leave, Professor, because we know that he's been there for a year. Clearly, there are no allegations that he was involved in corruption. Yes, it appears that he was influenced or he took a wrong decision to disband or give that order for the PKTT to be closed down. But despite that, how do we see Senzo Mkhunu returning as Minister of Police after all this? Do you believe the likes of General Makwanazi and other senior police officials will work with this particular person?
People are saying he must have something big on the president for him not to act despite all that. Because remember, it's not a labor relations issue here, right? This is a prerogative of the president to appoint or fire his ministers. Why do you think he would hold on up to this far, where the commission now has, 2 months to go before they give him the final report, for him to say just to create that sense of confidence to the public? Because remember, the trust has now been broken with the police. Why do you think that's the case? Before I give my colleagues to
There's no doubt in my view, and I'm not a political expert, everyone is saying that Senzo Mkhunu and Ramaphosa are very close.
Yeah.
And I think the mere fact that he hasn't acted for over a year does raise a lot of questions. Here we have taxpayers' money going down the drain. We know that Professor Firoz Kachalia was appointed as the acting Minister of Police. Yes, perhaps he's a gap filler and he's trying to just stabilize it and whatever. But really, I think the president should have taken a decision long ago. Many political parties have been calling for action to be taken against him. And really, I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money for the president to have kept Senzo Mkhunu in that particular position. Yes, he hasn't been referred to in the 2 interim reports that we know about. And probably there's going to be a decision. We are told that in the draft ad hoc committee, parliamentary ad hoc committee report, he is named to say that he took the decision and that led to where we are today.
But what's worse is his seeming tendency to interfere with witnesses at the Madlanga, trying to create all sorts of bizarre allegations against the National Commissioner.
That came up in Lieutenant Colonel Govinder's evidence. I see the minister issued a statement where he denied that. So remember, he has to come back to the commission. General Makwanazi is going to come back to the commission probably. General Kumalo will probably come back. We still have a number of witnesses that still have to return. I wonder if the commission before the 2nd of September is going to go back. I don't see the commission's term being extended. Again, some people are saying we should have the Madlanga commission permanently. But really, I think what we've uncovered so far in a nutshell is probably the tip of the iceberg of the rot within the criminal justice system. I mean, let's take, for example, the arrest or the prosecution of the senior crime intelligence officials.
That's crazy.
Clearly, it showed you something is wrong. And remember, we are waiting for a decision on whether General Fani Masimola, the National Police Commissioner, whether the charges in terms of the Public Finance Management Act are still going to hold. Probably we're going to see those charges withdrawn and we're probably going to see him appearing, because clearly IDEC, again, in the case of General Masimola, acted irregularly and they targeted him without the profiling procedures.
That were trying to really cause even more problems. Mike, please weigh in there in terms of how you have seen this whole thing. You have covered this, you have talked to a lot of people about Madlanga Commission. Please go in. You can also ask Yusuf some questions as our expert tonight.
My first observation was, you know, it just showed you to what level we'd got to, that the entire, just about every witness didn't even try to cover their tracks. They were doing this quite blatantly and quite brazenly. You know, it sort of brings a whole lot of things into question, that the whole system, the whole criminal justice system is so suspect at the moment that you can not even raise an eyebrow when somebody like Feroz Khan can pitch up at work in a supercar. You know, I mean, just on the basis of this, we always talk about lifestyle audits and things like that. The guy's living in a mansion, he's got something like more than 20 supercars. And he's a senior policeman and nobody raises an eyebrow.
To say, wait, how does this guy afford this?
You know, so that was my first sort of, you know, my abiding observation of this thing, to say, You've got to reach a stage where you feel such impunity for the law that you behave in this regard. And I'm very confused, and maybe you can help me, Yusuf. Why do you suppose, but I suppose it goes back to the question around Minister Senzo Mkhunu, but why does the President not release the reports? The
interim reports.
The interim reports. We're the mugs paying for this, as I keep on saying. The public is paying for these reports, paying for this whole show, and the President and his salary and all those good men. They go there, they've broken the law, they've broken the trust. It all sort of really stems from, I suppose, Babita Diakaran getting shot. That's really where the roots of its undoing start, I suppose. But the point is, people are dying. And not just the ones that are getting killed, but the people who can't get treatment at hospital. Here we are, the public, and the 2 interim reports come out, and we do not get sight of them.
Yeah, we're blindsided in a sense. Yusuf?
That's actually a very good point you've raised, Mike, because in both interim reports, remember the first interim report was released within 30 days of the Commission handing it over to President Ramaphosa, and it was a brief summary, not even a page, where he said these are the referrals and the prosecutions. The second one, it took much longer. It took over 2 months for the President to release the second interim report, and again, what we saw there was only 3 or 4 names of referrals, which does raise a lot of questions. If there is urgency, which there should be, the President should have released the full report so that the public can know. But I think if I look at the work of the Madlanga Commission, and if I look at the 3 commissioners, and even the work done by the evidence leaders, there's no doubt that commissions of inquiry, Prof, in my view, after the Madlanga, what we've seen over the past few months,
has brought, to reach.
They've got a very high standard to reach. Let's take, for example, the Zondo Commission. We know what was happening there. We know, yes, there's been some action, but clearly not enough. And what we've seen with the Madlanga Commission is arrest almost by the week. In fact, we prepare ourselves every Friday to say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is where the PKTT or this is where Gauteng GCI ops are going to go to, and they're going to arrest people. Or we're going to have suspensions. But clearly, the disciplinary processes within the police appear to be a problem. And that is where the delay was. We know, for example, the likes of Major General Shibiri, the head of organized crime. He was found guilty, he was dismissed from the police. The head of KZN Hawks, General Sanona, he resigned. We know, for example, Brigadier Nkwashu from Gauteng, from the Vaal Triangle, the Deputy District Commissioner. He's now gone on pension. He resigned because he also faced a hearing. We don't know what's the status of the suspension of Major General Firoz Khan, for example. We told that they couldn't serve a notice on him because he's sick. So clearly, Lieutenant General Fani Molife, the head of procurement, he was suspended. He was found not guilty, and apparently we are now told he's suspended again. Remember, his name came up in evidence where he was wheeling and dealing allegedly with the likes of Major General Firoz Khan and Mo Said, the tobacco tycoon. So disciplinary processes are one thing. What we need to see, more importantly, is arrest. But I think also we need to see convictions, because it's good to make arrests. It's good to take people. I mean, let's take, for example, the intimidation of a journalist. Last week at the commission, where a Sowetan journalist was allegedly intimidated by Shanik, this character who is a good friend of General Sibiya and even Fadil Adams, and I'll come to Fadil Adams in a moment. We know, for example, that he was arrested. He hasn't been charged for intimidation as yet, but they're now charging him. The PKTT is charging him on firearm-related charges, which are not major. It was, he didn't change his address, blah, 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 and he's been refused bail. So the PKTT clearly, while they're doing some good jobs, are also, by some of the critics, seen as just trying to target certain individuals for whatever reason. And while we're giving them credit for the work they're doing, they need to be very careful not to abuse their power.
More allegations, because if you listen to the recent testimony about, particularly this thing that's been bothering the public about people being, having justice administered immediately, killings when they are supposed to arrest, so that we can get to know who was behind, some crimes. Is there something there to worry about? or do you think it's just something that is being used to tarnish the image of Mkhwanazi?
Let's give KZN credit. Almost by the week, I think we've seen CIT robbers being shot dead, shootouts, so-called shootouts between gangs and robbers, police and robbers. And I think the IPID figure was 100 and some odd people within a period of a year.
Sure.
And I think the general public perception, and John Bailey will bear me out, is that people love to see criminals being shot dead. People say fight fire with fire. But I think at the end of the day, remember the police also have to work within the framework of the law.
The law, absolutely.
IPID hasn't charged any of the police officials, or very few of them, for
despite all the cases,
despite all the killings
and the incidents where people could have doubted whether indeed, for example, in terms of this testimony, the criminals shot first or not.
And if the allegations by, for example, Lieutenant Governor, Dina Governor, is true, then that implicate General Mkhwanazi, it will probably show, and the Commission will have to make a finding on that, there seems to be a bigger picture here to take down certain individuals who are fighting the criminal justice system. And again, you know, General Mkhwanazi is popular. And again, I think let's give credit where credit is due. And I say it again, we wouldn't have been here sitting here and having this discussion if it wasn't for him.
But there are people who are obviously not happy about that, Mike.
Correct.
Who are going to try and bring him down at the same time to say, rather let the whole house come down.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're fighting for their lives, Prof, the way I see it. But just to go back to the comparison between this and the Madlanga Commission, I certainly sort of
Zondo.
the Madlanga and the Zondo Commission. You know, it feels to me that there's an important factor at play here. One is that obviously this one's structured much better, and we didn't quite see it. Well, certainly I can speak for myself. Didn't quite see the telling difference in the structure. But there's another difference, and that is the mood of the public.
Yeah.
I think the mood of the public at the Zondo Commission was one of relief. We've gotten rid of Zuma and his state capture people. We're going to learn. It's a bit like going to confession.
Yeah.
You're going to hear all of these bad things, and then they out of the picture anyway, and then who cares whether they go to jail or not.
Yeah.
Bit of relief, new dawn, everything's great.
Yeah.
Now there's sheer anger amongst the population.
Absolutely.
We want to see people go to jail.
Yeah.
We want to see an end to the waste of our taxpayer money.
Resources.
Yeah.
Absolutely. John?
I think,
Please weigh
JJ, and I think we are, I mean, it's crazy listening to what Yusuf is telling us here. I mean, Yusuf is the foremost crime expert.
in the country.
He knows just about everything about everyone that you need to know. So, I mean, it's just listening to the stuff that Yusuf has been telling us about here. And I mean, for me, it's about accountability. Why is it that, I mean, if you look at Zondo, what Mike was referring to now, about R1 million was spent on that commission. $1 billion rather, sorry. What is it that that has come of that billion? I mean, what kind of return on investment did us as taxpayers get from that commission?
Yeah.
So at least we see some movement with what Madlanga is doing and all these arrests that you and Yusuf have been talking about.
Yeah.
But it's accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, why must the president take so long to take action against these officials? And unfortunately, you would think that in South Africa, but it is South Africa, that people would step aside, they would do the right thing. I mean, they are taking their time, they are going the legal route, they are actually frustrating the process more than ever. And you see all these smokes and mirrors that's happening within the police. So for me, Yusuf, I must say I'm quite concerned that where is all of this going? Because the cops are, even those, the foot soldiers, they are operating with impunity because they know what's happening at the top. If you see the amount of, I always say in Gauteng, the amount of so-called roadblocks that you see, and you see cops hanging with the one arm inside a car, then you know they're asking for a bribe.
Yeah.
Because they know nothing is going to happen to them. There is absolutely, they operate with impunity in this country.
See, what Madlanga is showing us is the rot at the top, right? And that's why you are so spot on to say they're scratching at the surface. Because what about the rot at the bottom? Because people at the bottom obviously are reflecting, because they say the fish rots from the head.
Yeah.
But at the bottom, what is happening, right? In our street, where there are drug lords and what, this bribery that's been talked about BBLs and what. Can you imagine what's happening on the ground?
Yeah, but I mean,
You know?
see, for me, JJ, I mean, I'm on the road every day, and you see, whenever I see these cops being out and having these roadblocks, there are specific dates as well. It's either here, middle of the month, the 15th, or maybe today. I mean, people got paid,
Yeah.
so
They'll be
you'll see them out and about.
Looking for Coca-Cola.
Yeah, looking for that Coca-Cola. So for me, it's we need to start taking action in this country.
I want us to go there now. I want us to go there quickly. Just if you've just joined us, we are on a special broadcast focusing on the Madlanga Commission, coming to you live from outside the Sunday World offices here in Sun Park, in collaboration with SMWX and the podcast called State of the Nation, and our key podcaster here, Mike Sham, is here, as well as John Bailey from the Sunday World. What should happen now, right? Because clearly there's a need here for civil action. And unfortunately, what the Madlanga, all the evidence that's been placed in front of us tell us is that the rule of law has collapsed. It has all but collapsed. How are we going to dust ourselves off? We were with the Minister of Acting Minister of Police a few weeks ago in a dialogue about security, and he did say that they're going to be looking at what they call a reset. How should that reset look like, Yusuf?
Before I come to that, I just want to pick up on John's point. I drove through a roadblock in Sandton today, and the minute I opened my window and he asked me for my driver's license, he said to me, "Sir, aren't you at the Madlanga Commission today?" And I said, "No, I'm going to a live broadcast with JJ Tabane." He said, no, thank you, you can go. So the issue of bribery, so you're going to have the traffic cops taking 10 rand or asking for a cold drink or asking for a lunch.
Yeah.
That is going to continue, and it keeps on happening. But when you have people right on the top involved in corruption and the levels that we are hearing, taking impalas allegedly, or getting the butt lifts or whatever you're going to do, we're in serious trouble. We know hundreds, if not thousands, of police are often implicated in wrongdoing, right from the top to the bottom. The police service, JJ, I often say, the majority of police officials are hardworking, they're effective, they risk their life every day going to protect us.
Yeah.
I mean, we take these two anti-gang unit members shot dead in Reiger Park just a week or two ago.
Crazy
they
stuff,
went there trying to fight crime, they are no more.
Yeah.
Within a week or so, we're going to again pay tribute to our fallen heroes and heroines on the lawns of the union buildings and the police memorial. A lot of police officials are dying in the line of duty. And yes, criminals are opportunistic. They take advantage. So they know the police service have a lack of resources, they're tainted with corruption, and they will then continue to execute their cash in transit robberies. They continue to take the police head on. And that is why we need stability within the police service.
Yeah.
We can't have an acting minister of police for a year. We can't have an acting national commissioner for a year. We can't have two acting deputy national commissioners for a year. Really, I think enough is enough.
There's no leadership.
You know, and there's no leadership.
Yeah.
So what we need, number one, in my view, is stability. Number two, perhaps number one, we need a political will.
Yeah.
We need government to act decisively and to act with speed. We know many years ago, and the experts will tell us about it as well, there's a so-called National Development Plan. You remember former Minister Trevor Manuel handed up this lovely campaign, the program, and Chapter 11 talks about crime and policing. They give recommendations about a police board and how a national commissioner should be implemented. Nothing has been done to implement specifically Chapter 11 of the National Development Plan. Right? Thirdly, we need the rot within the criminal justice system to be cleaned up. And when I talk of the rot within the criminal justice system, it's not only the police. I'm talking of the NPA. I mean, IDEC. I mean, let's take the issue of IDEC.
They are quite an embarrassment now.
They are national embarrassment. In fact, I now call them the embattled IDEC. Some people have been calling for the closure of IDEC. I don't think closing IDEC is going to be the solution. But if you look what the people or the likes of Andrea Johnson did, the likes of Brian Padiachi, Perumal, Balichan, who still have to come to the commission, by the way, if they're not in the Madlanga ward. it really raises a lot of questions about what was the motive and who was behind this. And let's take, for example, I mean, when General Makonazi stood up, and the other day he even mentioned lawyers who are involved in corruption, and that is an ongoing problem. We often hear of lawyers involved in corruption within the criminal justice system. I mean, I get complaints, for example, of a certain police station in Pretoria about lawyers working in cahoots with the cops and getting suspects out, getting people arrested, making money. For as long as we are not going to clean up this mess, and for as long as we are going to not see the quick prosecution of these people, we're going to have a problem. Do you remember during the 2010 World Cup, we saw special courts that even sat on Saturday and Sunday to process those people that were breaking the law?
Absolutely.
Why don't we have special courts specifically for the Madlanga Commission with credible prosecutors, credible magistrates or judges, and clean them up?
There's 100 people who are mentioned in the Zondo report. And if you want a monument of inaction or political inaction, you have to look at the Zondo report. Why? Because the high-ranking people are implicated there. You're talking anybody from the chairman of the ANC down, right, being implicated in the Madlanga Commission with no action being taken.
Let's take, for example, the issue of Emmanuel Mbenzi, the suspect that was tortured and killed in Ekurhuleni. What, 2022? It took years for IPED to investigate the matter. And just the other day, they made some arrest. Why did it take so long? If it wasn't for the Madlanga Commission, would we have even seen these people being arrested? Clearly not. So I think what we need to do is we need to see the criminal justice system, specifically government, moving at speed to make sure that all those people implicated.
Do you think that not the non-release, and I'll come to you, Mike, on that, the non-release of the report, I think that's what you raised earlier, is what is actually delaying action? Because if you listen to the Minister of Police at our dialogue, he was basically saying, we're not going to wait for Madlanga to give a report. We need to act now. But the rest of the public is blindsided about what he's talking about. Because probably he is talking with having seen the report, maybe. Because I suspect the president may have not kept it to himself, but gave it to the police minister to say, see what you can act here. Or do you think they are playing for time? Because maybe what Madlanga is recommending in those two reports is so drastic, and then it would then cause outrage because once again, they are not acting.
Remember, there's a special task team appointed by the police leadership and the president to investigate all these cases. I know behind the scenes, for a matter of fact, a number of high-profile investigations are underway. There's no doubt, JJ, within the coming weeks, we're going to see more and more arrests being made. We're going to see more and more of these people brought before the courts of law, especially those people implicated. Let's take, for example, the likes of Suleiman Karim, the controversial Northwest business person. The Commission has recommended that he now be investigated and possibly be criminally charged for contravening the Commission's Act. Well, the investigations are underway, but I think there's a bigger picture. I'm told that he's now being investigated for money laundering. Yes, we don't expect arrests to be made overnight. You need to have a credible case. You need to have your proper evidence.
But on define the Commission, he should already be in prison.
Technically, he should have been in prison. Right? So I think there needs to be greater speed at which the investigators move. But I can understand that they are overwhelmed. There's a lot of evidence that has come forward. And there's still a lot of evidence that's going to come to the fore. I know, for example, some of the evidence we are told that was held in camera, specifically around Major General Firoz Khan. A number of other high-profile people have been implicated. So the Commission and the investigators will have to make a finding and start investigating those particular cases. But I think the quicker we clean up crime intelligence, the better it will be. I've always said
there's no crime intelligence.
Correct.
Crime intelligence doesn't exist in this country. I mean, if you look at, and Yusuf can tell us more about that. But for me, it's like if we had a proper crime intelligence structure in this country, JJ, then we would not have seen this amount of foreigners coming into the country. The fact that we have Mexicans operating in South Africa now and having these drug labs that they are building. I mean, how is that possible?
I wouldn't be surprised if terrorists are having cells here and we have no idea about it. We have seen some of the training camps in Mpumalanga. How does that happen in our country?
I think we've got to go back to the original sin. and there is an original sin here, and that is whether there's political will to have a functioning criminal justice system. I don't know if you noticed last week or so, the NPA and some of the other bodies, including IPID and a few others, were in Parliament. And they still couldn't explain why we do not have digital documentation. Right? Just want to remind everybody that's watching, this is 2026. You would not imagine that you could go into any kind of business and you're going to go into a charge office and they're going to pull out a piece of paper, right? Yeah. And you're going to put it into a file as if it's, 1926.
Stone Age.
Stone Age. Yeah. And we understand why. A file can get sold, a file can get lost, a file can get burnt, it can disappear.
It's not backed up, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen now, the acting Minister of Police wring his hands, make out as if he can't do anything about it. Well, organizations get turned around in less than a year. Can you imagine if you did nothing running your business for a year and getting away with it? He had the absolute, to me, one of the most shameful things I've seen was that Feroz Kachalia went to the 5th anniversary of the killing of Babita Deokaran recently and said how terrible this was. He's the bloody police commissioner. He's the bloody minister of police saying, this is terrible. We should do something about it.
I mean, you're absolutely right. You talk about, for example, taking the dockets and putting them onto a system. Just today, Ian Cameron, the chairman of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, issued a statement. I tweeted on Sunday and I showed pictures which I blurred of 4 bodies where people were necklaced in Cape Town, right? The caller who witnessed the thing immediately phoned 10111, and what happened? As expected, they put down the call. Now, I mean, if we can't get the basics right of even running a proper call center like 10111, what does it tell you about the public confidence in the police system? The other day, Feroz Kachalia was asked in Parliament, what happened to the body cameras that police have promised they're going to start implementing? We know that millions were spent on a pilot project. Clearly, they don't have the money. But you take a basic issue like a body camera, which has become the norm now in most countries, in first world countries, where it avoids corruption, it will record everything in real time, whether it's a shooting and whether there's torture, whatever. We can't even implement that. Yes, we need the money. And that is why government must invest money in the police service. For as long as that is not going to happen, the criminals are going to take advantage. And just on John's point about crime intelligence, I agree with you. Crime intelligence is critical, right? Especially when we have to infiltrate these gangs, whether it's terrorist gangs, whether it's violent cash-in-transit robbery gangs, whether it's extortion gangs, whether it's kidnapping gangs. And the reality is, at the end of the day, we're all watching the Madlanga Commission, either on television, on YouTube, or on our smartphones through various social media platforms. Does it instill hope into the future? Probably yes, because we're now uncovering the rot. But what practical measures do we need to create a safer South Africa? And that is what South Africans expect. Because remember, South Africans can't walk the streets. We are living in our homes in fear, with burglar bars, with electric fences, with security guards, some people with bodyguards, some people with bulletproof cars. Is this the life that we need in this beautiful country of ours? Clearly not.
It's absolutely crazy. Can you just talk a little bit about what should be the role of the security industry? Because, the figures are staggering in terms of the comparison from the police force we have per individual. If you say one police is to how many people in the 60 million population country, and security industry, I think it's the security industry is like 4 times the police or more.
JJ, when we were together at a frank dialogue in Sandton just a few weeks ago, we discussed the issue of the role of private security. The police alone cannot fight crime. There needs to be collaboration, there needs to be partnership. We have 185,000 police officials in South Africa, policemen and women. A large chunk of them are sitting in offices and they are pen and paper pushers. Very few are out on the streets. No wonder you have 1 or 2 police vehicles, no wonder they'll take hours to respond to a crime. The private security industry has become a multi-billion rand industry. Yes, we have CIRA who's regulating them.
Yeah.
They're trying to do a good job. And we even see the likes of Vusiket Matlala,
Yeah.
Suleiman Karim, other people using the security industry for whatever
Nefarious
they
purposes.
may
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
When we talk of private security, we are talking of hundreds and thousands of security guards and officials out there.
Yeah.
Guarding our buildings, patrolling the streets, reaction units, cash in transit guards, etc. The security industry has become one of the major industries in South Africa. And that's why I say it here again. It's important that we build the private security industry to work with the police.
Yes.
You know, there's been talk, and I think it's ANC policy, that Metro police officials should be incorporated as part of the National Police.
Yes.
We know what's happening in the Western Cape, or specifically in Cape Town. They're asking for the devolution of power because they say we can fight crime, and there's a lot of politics at play there. And let's forget the politics for a moment. What we need is also the corporate world to invest in the fight against crime. So we know Business Against Crime is doing a great job,
Yes.
but we need the private security industry to come on board and partner with us in the media, for example,
Yeah.
not only to create awareness, but really to show the world that we can educate the public. Because remember, at the end of the day, and John Bailey and I worked together for a very, very long time, and we were focusing specifically on the fight against crime as well,
Yeah.
because we believe it's critical to create awareness
Yeah.
on a media platform.
Mobilization.
Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you know, when I go to a shopping mall and people will stop me and say, you know what, thank you, you gave us a good tip on your show the other day,
Yeah.
or on television, and you said we must do ABC, we must know our surroundings. That actually saved me because that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Right? When I come home, I look around. If I see a suspicious person, I drive away.
Yeah.
Small, basic
Cheap.
issues like those make a difference. That is why I believe
People doing something.
it's important
Yeah.
that we educate the public. And I'm calling on, for example, not only the security industry, the insurance companies,
Yeah.
CIRA, for example, the banks, all other people, because crime affects everyone. My call
What
to
happened
them,
to the Business Against Crime?
they are quite effective. They have a lot
Yeah.
of collaboration. They're investing millions of rands with the police. But again, you know, Business Against Crime, and probably correctly so, works very much behind the scenes. But I think we need the corporate world, Mike, to really come out now and say, we want to create awareness. We want to partner with you. Because at the end of the day, we can only create a safer South Africa if we all join hands. The Madlanga Commission is coming to an end now in November.
Yeah.
We're all going to go back and we're going to do our normal stuff, and we're going to start focusing on the day-to-day criminal issues.
Yeah.
But again, we need to find a solution.
Absolutely.
I'd
Mike?
like to perhaps disagree with you on a thing here, because I've got this problem of business stepping in where the state is failing. Because then that gives the state, if this was a different country where they would feel some sense of shame in business taking up the job, in South Africa it seems that then the police is going to do even less. Yeah, I would rather have that energy put into try and force the government to do what we pay them every month to do.
Yeah.
We pay an enormous amount in tax, right? This is not some hard-up country. Our parliamentarians should be stripped of their protection. That's possibly one way that we'd get better policing, right? Because then they might just force them to take security and crime seriously. But I'm really concerned about that. There's also another inadvertent concern that I have about the Madlanga Commission. If we can all watch live on television or our devices or whatever, something like the Madlanga Commission, we're going to start mistaking that for the way our courts really operate, which is nothing like that. They don't have clever evidence leaders with great resources. You don't have great judges that can ask insightful questions. We need to raise our game, but I'm concerned that people are going to think that the Madlanga Commission is representative of a court in South Africa, that the state arrives this prepared.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a little bit about your worry about business being involved? Wouldn't you agree that with the kind of mess that we are in, we can't leave in everything to government? In other words, when you are talking about what is colloquially called a social compact, you're saying everyone must do something.
Yeah, everyone
to
must
be able
do.
to push back on the levels of criminality and crime. For example, to take the issue of whistleblowing. Surely that is part of what an individual can do.
Yeah, I'm just
With-
concerned about
Yeah.
between that and issues like security companies,
Yeah.
that we're not holding the police's feet to the fire.
Yeah.
You know, if you know that crime isn't good, you're going to listen to tips from Yusuf, you're going to up your security, personal security, when what we should really be doing is marching down the streets and telling the police to do their work.
Is it either or, though?
No, it can be an and, but to me the social compact is not being broken by the citizens. It's being broken by the government
Yeah.
that is not doing their job in keeping our police force efficient and effective.
Yeah. All right, John, what do you think?
You know, for me, JJ, it's a matter of that there is clearly no political will, right, to address these issues that we are facing.
Yeah.
So for me, we can hit our heads as how many times against the wall.
Yeah.
It's not going to change. We as society must take a stand
Yeah.
and say enough of this nonsense.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, we can be talking about the police is supposed to do this. The police is showing us the middle finger. And well, the politicians more than ever. And now we are in an election year, so you see just about no action. We have to now wait. Suddenly there's now, if you look at the service delivery, there'll be more, that will be ramped up as we get closer to the 4th of November. But then everything will go back to normal again in South Africa. And for me,
Afterwards, yeah.
we really need to, as society, must come together. And I agree, Yusuf, talking about all these other different role players that must come on board.
Yeah.
Because if we leave it to the state, hey, we're going down like a lead ball very, very fast. Huh?
Yeah.
I just want to make 2 quick points.
Yeah.
Mike, I agree with you to a point. Can you imagine we must depend on government to sort out any problem? God help us. It's not going to happen. They can't even fix up the potholes.
Yeah.
They can't even pick up the litter. And I don't want to talk about other service delivery issues. We know, for example, the illicit trade, where I'm actively involved in fighting it under the banner of Tax Justice South Africa, a non-profit organization. We know how these criminals go, for example, to your corner supermarket or spaza shop or cafe. You can buy a packet of cigarettes. I'm not a smoker. I'm told it's sold for about 26 Rand with the excise duties. You can buy it for 5 Rand and 6 Rand.
Yeah.
Right? Where does the money go to? Not to the government so that they can help us to fight crime and give us better service. It goes right into the pockets of those criminals.
Yeah.
The guy who runs with the cigarettes gets arrested. The guy who smuggles it from Zimbabwe, the RG brand, into South Africa gets arrested. The kingpins are making billions.
Yeah.
That is why I say, yes, John Bailey is absolutely right, JJ. We must all become active citizens. But again, when we talk of active citizenry, I've said it before and I will repeat it. We know in our neighborhood who sells drugs.
Yeah.
We know who buys backdoor or stolen goods. We know who are the gangsters or the hijackers. What do? No, we're scared. We can't tell anyone because they will come and kill us.
We hide them.
We hide them.
The mothers will
We
hide them.
protect
the
Yeah, yeah,
criminals.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as we complain about crime, we must take a stand against crime because enough is enough. For as long as we are going to take a backseat and we're going to leave these criminals to run amok, forget about creating a safer South Africa.
Right. Now, to wrap up the conversation tonight, and I hope that, Yusuf, we can do this more regularly. It's time that we occupy the space. I mean, if you go into social media and so on, there's a lot of frivolity going on, right? And I think it's time that we really put a serious campaign in the public where we can generate, if you like, this active citizenship, right? But also create consciousness about what needs to be done in terms of not just the criminal justice system. You'll be surprised that what's happening in the police. I mean, if you have criminality around procurement in the police, you can imagine what's happening at public works, where there are, buildings are being sold and auctioned off or being, hijacked by crooks and what have you. You could imagine what's happening in social development, where what are these social grants are being stolen by ghost workers and you name it, right? So crime is is multifaceted, right? So what should be done? What should be the uppermost in terms of Parliament? Parliament has a whole portfolio committee on police. I'm not sure, they haven't said much lately. I think they were overshadowed by the ad hoc committee, right? Then you've got the executive, then you've got civil society. Just if I'm going to go around the panel, you say, what do you see as things that should really be top priority in the next while?
We need to restore stability within the police service. We need to get communities on board to join hands and to fight crime. And I think thirdly, we in the media, JJ, have a very important role to play.
Yeah.
You remember 2 or 3 years ago, we went to the Cape Flats.
Yes.
John Bailey was there, you were there. We engaged as communities.
Absolutely.
You talk of the Cape Flats. The
Yeah.
past weekend alone, 15 or 20 people were killed. It's a normal weekend. Probably the figures were low for this past weekend.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of people
That's
being killed
absolutely
on
crazy.
the
Why are we
place.
not getting a hold of that, by the way? Why are we not, despite the army being deployed there, why is it sounds like it's getting worse?
It's most certainly getting worse. And remember, the army is just brought in as a backup to the police service, also limited numbers. It shows you how these gangs are taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
We need to reach out to these communities. And when we went to the town hall meetings, we
Yeah.
listened to the cries of mothers. We listened to the cries
KZN
of
was
people,
worse, eh?
children who can't walk the streets. When we went to Durban
Yeah.
and we engaged with communities, I think we need to create more awareness and to speak to and listen to the people on the ground. Again, I say it, and Mike might disagree with me, we need the business world to come on board.
Yeah.
We need CIRA, for example, to partner with us and say,
Absolutely.
let's get along, let's get rid of the rot within the private security industry, let's put the credible security industries to the front and join hands and work with the police. And again, I say it, we need this political will.
Yeah.
For as long as we're going to sit and complain and complain and complain and point
Nothing's
fingers at
gonna
the police
happen.
or at government, nothing is going to happen. If everything, it's going to cause South Africans to get more disillusion. It's going to cause foreign investors to say, we are not coming to your country because we are scared. It's going to affect our tourism. It's going to affect our economy. And what a beautiful country don't we have, where we can show the world what we can offer.
Yeah.
And yes, crime is affecting our problem. You know, we know all these issues around illegal foreigners. And really, I think we need to restore law and order. Government must be decisive. They must take action within the framework of the law. But at the end of the day, we need stability within the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. John, your party in short?
So for me, JJ, I mean, we must make peace with the fact that we have a broken criminal justice system here. And you know, there's a beautiful Chinese saying that says that action must be taken against the tigers and the flies. The tigers being those at the top and the flies being those the foot
bottom,
soldiers, right?
yeah.
So for me, there must be a complete overhaul that needs to happen. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one thing for the acting minister to keep on talking about things, but he's doing very little. So for me, and we also as citizens must take accountability for what we do, because when that cop stops me later this evening and he asks for a Coke, I must not give him that Coke, the money for that Coke. I mean, and we are adding to the nonsense that we are experiencing in this country, because what kind of country are we building for our kids? I really want...
Although John told me the other day, don't give him a Coke, give him a Fanta Orange. But I disagree with that point.
so for me, it's really, I mean, it's always about what are we going to leave behind for our kids?
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up where we were playing in the streets. I can't dare to do that at the moment. So I think we also as citizens must take accountability for what we do.
Absolutely. No, thank you, John. Your last word.
Yeah, I'm
Mike?
I'm the big believer that business must get behind crime, but we mustn't do it at the expense of letting the police off the hook. I think that there's only one thing that we need to do, and we needed to do it for a long time, and that is that, you know, to use an old saying, every now and then you need a public hanging. We need some very serious people to be taken.
We arrested the big fish.
Big,
The
but
arrest
I'm
of the
talking
big
about,
fish.
you know,
Yeah.
cabinet ministers,
Yeah.
people going off to jail
Yeah.
as a visible deterrent to
Yeah.
people below, to say there are consequences for what you're doing. The danger with the Madlanga Commission is that it ends with a whole lot of recommendations, a whole lot of information,
Yeah.
but you know, a few lowly policemen go to jail or get suspended. We need people high up to go to jail.
Talking about the Madlanga Commission, the thing that you raised earlier about it maybe potentially giving a wrong impression about how our courts work. We haven't heard anything, and you can jump in there, about the corruption in the judiciary. Remember, one of the allegations that Mkhwanazi made on the 6th of July last year was that there's also corruption within the judiciary. What do you make of that? The fact that we've not seen any stretch.
Highly unlikely
evidence.
that there isn't, you know, in a country like South Africa, because right until now you've been a mug for not being crooked in South Africa, because you can get away with it, especially if you're higher up. So why wouldn't you do it? So I'm saying that just using that kind of logic, somewhere, somehow, I wanted to touch on some of the people that have not appeared at the Madlanga Commission, the Morgan Maumelas and Katiso Malefe being released on bail. That stuff doesn't happen unless somebody's decided, we'll just not press this button, we'll press that button.
Absolutely. Yusuf?
I agree with him. Magistrates, judges, prosecutors, they've been mentioned. We've seen very little evidence as yet before the Madlanga Commission. Let's hope it comes out. But you know, General Mkhwanazi was accused of trying to stage a coup when he stood up in Durban last year. And John Bailey and I had a chat before while this is your show and you are chairing it, we've become used to you, Professor JJ Tabane, of starting your shows with a JJ rant. And we are demanding that you close the show with a JJ rant on crime and policing before we say goodbye.
Thank you, gentlemen. This was excellent. Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast. And as Yusuf Abramjee would say on television, it's a war, but we must all win it because we've got no choice. This is our only country. This is our only home. And if you and I don't do something about it, if we do not brighten the corner where we are so that criminals don't have anywhere to hide, it will be you and me who indeed are to blame. You've got the end of this year, you've got 2029 to make a difference because a lot of what is missing is political will. And that under the current political environment, so much rot has happened, but it's because you and I have allowed it to so continue to happen. But until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.